Oh, it's my unemployed show. Back at you. I'm KB. I'm unemployed, and it is day 57 of unemployment, of not doing anything really remotely, I guess you could say, productive. However, already before the show even started, I got a comment from James on the YouTube page, which I'm going to address right away, where he says, if you are teaching this semester, shouldn't this be retitled KB's semi unemployed show, asking for Zaven, which is pretty wild because I don't know why Zaven would know. The original case is it almost June 10th? What does that mean? Is it almost June 10th? Fill me in at the original K. I don't understand your cryptic message. But anyway, it is today's KB's unemployed show. So what did I do today? Not much of anything. I did have class, right? So I did go to class, and with I got a great group of students. I really do. Some very funny students. It is going to be a good semester. BJam says I can tell the whole story. Heller has an announcement on March 3rd. Well, Heller was relieved of his duties before I was. And I don't know what his non-compete thing is. So I can't even talk about having a non-compete. So I'm not even going to talk about that. So I don't even know what Heller's announcement is. I'm sure he's going to be doing something. I was advised that as long as I'm not doing, which means as long as I'm not doing a show like it did before, which is impossible because it's impossible for me to do a show like my previous one because I had a duo. There were two of us. I can't do a two-person show with one person. That would be like what is so confusing to me. That would be like someone having the pronouns they them. You are plural. You are not two people. You are one people. And so I can't do the show, and I don't talk about sports, and I don't work for a company. I'm sitting there talking on my computer. So right now, I'm talking like 28 people. So I hardly think that that I'm competing. I'm just trying to kill time. So that's real. Well, 27 people. Someone got mad and left. But today, interesting show today. I've gotten into. There's a few things I'm going to go down. I have gotten back into, and I have been doing this before. And I started doing I started doing a deeper dive into this. And there are things, and I go in cycles of what I'd like to watch. Um, and there's probably four or five main things that I'll get into. And I constantly go out and search for information or documentaries or what have you. I'm a big fan of the documentary. I'll sit and watch them at night. One is extreme weather, especially tornadoes, wind related extreme weather. Number two is serial killers. Number three is 9/11 documentaries, which I watch quite a bit. I've been watching, I guess this would be serial killer, but I've been watching some of the Koberger stuff, although that gets kind of creepy. And then the fifth one is what I'm back into right now. And because there's a couple more that have come out, and that is Mount Everest documentaries. I don't know why I'm into Mount Everest documentaries, but I am. 27 very important people. We're up to 29 now. So I'm into Mount Everest documentaries, and I started looking into it, and it's pretty interesting. And I found some photos and stuff, and I'm just going to talk a little Mount Everest today. Why? Because I just But first, as always, we are going to do the news and. KB's Unemployed show, news, weather, but not sports, because I can't talk about sports. So we're going to talk about news. Here we go. We're going to start off. The NFL has announced that there will be no ice presence at the Super Bowl, to which I respond, well, duh. Of course, there's not going to be ice presence at the Super Bowl. The average ticket price at the Super Bowl, face value, average price in the door is $42.50. Now, that's not even the average. The average is up much higher. The low price at face in the door is $4,250. I cannot think of anything I would want to do. There is not a amount of money in the world I would spend to go to the Super Bowl. for $4,250. I want to say that um, it wasn't that high when the Packers were in San Diego because I knew some guys who went, and I don't think it was $4,000. I don't even think it was remotely close. But 4,250 now. Aftermarket, what I've seen is between $6,000 and $8,000. No ice presents at the Super Bowl, which makes a lot of sense simply because at $4,200 a ticket, that's not their target. I really don't think it's their target. Hopefully, I didn't sound like ass. Now I'm going to sound a little bit better. I was just sitting back, hanging out. Yeah, at 42.50 a ticket, these are not the border jumpers that you're looking for. Not at all, not in the least. Westminster Kennel Club dog show is underway in New York, and yesterday was day one. Um, I don't know why I like watching the Westminster. Last year, a PBGB won, Petite Basset Griffin, whatever, some French shit. Um, One, and I was kind of happy about it because this is a portrait that someone did of our dog, our middle dog. I guess he died about, I don't know, 5 years ago, Jack, and he's a PBGB. So last year, I'm kind of excited that that breed won the best in show for us. This year, right now, they did the first four groups, and then they do the next three tonight, and then the best in show. In the hound group last night was the Afghan hound, that's the dog that looks like carpet, looks like shag carpeting. In the non-sporting group, it was the Lhasa Apso. And if you see it, yeah, you can see why a Lhasa Apso is not doing any sports. In the toy group, it was the Maltese, which is good because probably unseated the Pekingese, which is always there, and the toy poodle, which is always around. Sometimes you get your dachshunds in there, although the dachshund may be in the hound group. And then you had the herding group. You had the Old English Sheepdog, which again is displacing. Generally, a border collie is going to be rocking that thing. But it is the Old English Sheepdog, and I didn't know really how the judges judge these dogs, um, until, someone told me that between, uh, it's not a competition between the dogs in the group. What it is, say, more of a, um they judge the dog based on how close to perfection that dog is within their breed. So if you got your whole hound group there, they check all the hounds, and of all the different hounds that are entered, it's the dog that is closest to perfection, and that's why it changes and it moves around. So tonight are the final groups, which is the terrier group, the working group, and some other group. I don't know what it is, but then they do the best in show. And the judge, this is wild. The judge is sequestered. The guy who's doing best in show, the guy who's doing the final judging, he's sequestered. Okay, and which is wild that he would have to be sequestered. But now they lock him up in a hotel room for a couple of days in New York, and he can't come out. So the Westminster tonight, that's what I'll be down hard watching. And then over the next couple of weeks, what I'll be down hard watching is the Olympics coming up. We'll talk about that, but I can't talk about it a lot. Why? Because it's news, weather, but not sports. Jill Biden's ex-husband killed his wife. Probably won't see this in mainstream media, but a man who was once married to, says the former First Lady, Jill Biden, or as they like to call her, Dr. Jill Biden. She has a doctorate. She's not a doctor. Put it this way, if she was flying commercial and someone stood up and said, "Is there a doctor on the plane?" She couldn't help. So he was charged with first-degree murder in the death of his current wife. He's 77 years old. His name is Bill Stevenson. He's accused of killing his 64-year-old wife at their home near Wilmington, Delaware. There was a domestic dispute right after Christmas, and they found her unresponsive in the living room. Despite life-saving efforts, she was pronounced dead at the scene. They did an investigation, weeks-long investigation. They determined that he was indeed the person who killed her. He was married to Jill Biden when she was 18 and he was 23. They divorced in 1975. The Trevi Fountain, dude, last one year. The Trevi Fountain is charging admission now in Rome. It's one of the world's most iconic landmarks, and it's pretty cool. When I was in Rome a couple of years ago, my son and I would just go out walking at night, and it's really kind of wild because number one, you don't know anything where anything is in Rome. But we would just go out and we'd start strolling around. And I was putting on between 20 and 30,000 steps a day, right? I went to Rome, ate all the pasta I want, drank wine like there was no tomorrow. In fact, my son and I had a rule that anytime we went out to dinner, we each had to kill a bottle of Chianti. But anyway, when you walk around Rome, obviously there are landmarks and everything everywhere, but we weren't walking around like tourists with a little book. Oh, let's go over here. Let's go over there. And we just bumped into them. And I do recall one night we're walking and it's like, let's go down this street. So we go down this street and probably about 300 yards we turn. It's like, well, there's a Trevi Fountain. How about that? That's sitting right over there. That's that fountain there, the Trevi Fountain. But we did that thing we did the same thing happened to us when we were walking. We just came across the Spanish Steps, which have nothing to do with Spain. It's like, why are they getting credit for the steps? I have no idea. But the Spanish Steps, Spain has nothing to do with the Spanish Steps whatsoever. But you just kind of stumble on these things. Well, the Trevi Fountain starting this week is going to be charging non-residents about $2 to approach the Trevi Fountain and throw coins in during peak hours. So the ticketing system is going to be between 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. from 11 most days, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Mondays and Fridays. And after 10 p.m., the barriers will come down and anyone can just go from 10 p.m. until they open again the next day. You can go look at it for free. The goal is to control the massive crowds, and the crowds are massive. They are, you're 15 or 20 deep looking at this thing. And it's cool, don't get me wrong, but it does get crowded. And the thing is that people want to go up to the Trevi Fountain and they want to throw a coin in. They want to make a wish, right? They want their wish to come true. And that got me thinking is that, well, what do they do with the money? And all the millions of tourists, they said, well, we need the money to take care of the fountain. But the coins that are thrown in the fountain, like thousands and thousands of euros daily, the coins that are thrown in go to charity. Here's what I'm going to go with. Take a rake, okay? Take a rake off the top. Why are you giving everything to charity? You're still going to give a pretty good dollar amount to charity, but take a rake and keep it up instead of charging us to go see it. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I would go out 10 o'clock at night anyway if I was going to go see it. We just kicked around late all the time. And one last thing, I love this, right? Because, I said it when we talked about the Grammys, I said the one thing that I predicted, and we knew it would happen, is that the Grammys were going to be woke as hell, which of course they were. And the two people that really were leading the wokeness, if you will, were Bad Bunny and Billie Eilish. And Billie Eilish made the comment, no one is illegal when you're on stolen land. So profound. Well, come to find out that she said that, and she returned home to her $4 million mansion, which sits on stolen land. Yes, a member of the Tongva tribe came out and said, hey, you made that comment that no one's illegal if it's on stolen land. But you know what? That's our tribe's ancestral property. So it was stolen. And now your home is on tribal land. And they've said Billie Eilish has not contacted our tribe directly regarding her property, but we do value instances when public figures provide visibility, and the true history of this country. But I just love it. No one is illegal when they are on stolen land. And that's where your $4 million home sits. And sick of it. Sick of it. I am sick of it. I can't take it anymore. I'm sick of all that stuff. Okay, day 2, diet update. We're going to check in here on my diet. As I said yesterday, I put on some weight and I wasn't sure how much I put on. Now I know. I think my all-time low was 206, 205, 206. I was always hanging around 208, 209. I know I got big because I got this stuff coming back. So I weighed myself, and you have to be, if you're going to drop weight, you got to be held accountable, right? You got to do something to be held accountable so you don't embarrass yourself. And that is what I'm going to do. So when we start the show from now on, I'm going to check in and I'm going to tell you how much I weigh. So today, this is where I'm at. I'm at 217.8 pounds. So 218 pounds. And that is 10 pounds up from where I was hanging out, and that is kind of unacceptable. So we're going to be changing that, and we're going to start working on it today. I didn't. Well, maybe I did cheat a little bit, but it's really hard when you got a wife who's a really good cook. But I'll be back on. I didn't cheat like I usually did. I'm very, very careful, but I'm betting by next Monday I'll be at 212 pretty easily. I think I can get to 212 pretty easily. So, one other thing too, when we talk about all this wokeness that I absolutely love, and I wish I could take credit for this, and I can't. And I'll try and find out who did it, who posted it, but I saw it and I just dragged it off Twitter. But when I read this, I thought this was absolutely sheer genius. This is when I talk to students about critical thinking, the way they have to analyze things. And it's not smartass per se, it's just looking at things in a way and showing how the hypocrisy of the way some people are and taking everything in the literal sense is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to do a show coming up, which the next couple of weeks, and this gets back to the whole serial killer thing, where I was watching, I don't know if it was Manhunter, Mindhunter, it was one of those. And I think that would be my dream job. Had I known it existed when I was in college, I would have gone for profiler. I think profiler would be a kick-ass job, right? And I was following the first season of it was Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, which Unabomber, I don't know if people know where the Unabomber came from, but it came from the fact that as one of his first bombs was United Airlines. So United Airlines, they called them the Unabomber. Fun Unabomber fact. But I'm going to do a show on the Unabomber because as I was watching this documentary, I got intrigued. And I was intrigued by the Unabomber's manifesto. So, one show coming up, we're going to break down that manifesto. Why? Well, we're not going to break down the entire thing. But why would I do that? As I read it the first time, I was just absolutely flabbergasted. And the reason I was flabbergasted is now, granted, I don't condone the way he addressed his issues by any stretch of the imagination, nor would I expect anyone to address issues that way at all. Um, as I read the manifesto, which was written sometime between 1975 and 1982, it's kind of like a doctoral thesis, if you will. As I started reading it, and particularly the first half of it, I went, "This guy freaking nailed it." He's like a Nostradamus. And again, as I said, I don't condone the way he addressed his issues, but it was technology and an industrial society or something was like that. And as he was writing about it, now this is 1975. He talked about the advancement of technology, how people are going to advance things thinking that it is going to bring us closer together when in actuality it will drive us farther apart. He talked about how advocates for social change, they will come up and argue on points that they have, but then when they run out of points to make, they just start calling names. Wonder where you heard that before. But as I read through it, I'm like, man, this guy flat out nailed it. I mean, he predicted everything that we're living through right now. And no one has really brought this out, probably because they're afraid to talk about the Unabomber. But I used that manifesto and I redacted a lot of stuff because there's a lot of inflammatory things. And when you teach at a university, a state university, right? You have to be very concerned about triggering and microaggressions. So I redacted a lot of it because there would be some things in there that, even though they were written 50 years ago, would be incredibly inflammatory. But I make them read the manifesto not the whole thing, probably the first 10 pages, and make notes on it. Then we talk about it because they're in advertising, social media and the advancement and different differentiation in the way we communicate. And so I give it to them and they read it. Then they come to class, the next class, and we talk about it. And I have found that more often than not, they are in agreement with me. And it's like, yeah, this guy kind of got it figured out. He's making good points here. And then at the end of the class, I go, does anyone know who this is? And nobody does. And then I put up on the screen behind me the infamous Ted Kaczynski Unabomber police sketch. I go, that's the Unabomber. And they're like, what? But the lesson I teach them is you got to learn how to separate the messenger from the message. And that's what I always try and do. That's why I'm saying, just give me the facts. I just want the facts. I'll make my own decision. And no one ever goes that far, right? No one ever takes it to that end. Everyone has got to have their editorial comments. As I said before, the TV news that I watched the most several years ago was Al Jazeera America. Al Jazeera America had the best news. And the reason it had the best news is because there was no editorial. That's all they did was read you the news. There was no commentary. There was no one mixing in inflammatory words into the copy or using part of the story as a headline to try and change things. Al Jazeera was the best news out there, but I was always afraid to watch it because I would think that if the president was coming to town, I would get a knock at the door. Hey, why don't you stay home today? Because they know what you watch. They know everything. But Al Jazeera had the best. And I'd love to see some of these outlets go back and take a look at everything that is going on now and read that manifesto because he predicted all of this. He predicted the way that both sides would divide and fight each other, which is what we're seeing right now. And, especially in Minneapolis, which I'm looking at and going, isn't this thing going to sputter out at some point? Apparently not. But the one thing that just is insane is that these protesters just go wherever they want. And I saw a video and they decided they're all going to go into Target stores. It's like, what the hell did Target ever do to you? Why are you in Target? Right? And unless you're going in there and you need those little plastic milk cartons to use as bookshelves and you're going to college or some sort of cheap furniture or a small kitchen appliance, that's how you go to Target. If you're protesting, why are you walking into Target? What did Target ever do to you? Stay out of Target. Go somewhere else. I'm walking into Target because it's probably the closest thing to keep them warm because it's fucking freezing up. But what did Target do to you? That's all I'm saying is what did Target do to you? But I saw this and I love this. I think it pretty much sums it up. And I had to laugh because people who this will offend will be offended not because of what is said, because it's the way it's said, right? But everything that is in this absolutely is true. And I'll put it up there so you can take a look at it and read along. And someone made a post, and I wish I know who. See, I'll look around the corner. I wish I know who made this post, right? And I'll hide behind here so it's not distracting. And said it snowed last night. 8 p.m. I made a snowman. 8:10, a feminist passed by and asked me why I didn't make a snow woman. So I made a snow woman. My feminist neighbor complained about the snow woman's voluptuous chest, saying it objectified snow women everywhere. The gay couple living nearby threw a fit and moaned it could have been two snowmen instead. The transgender man and woman person asked why I didn't just make one snow person with detachable parts. The vegans at the end of the lane complained about the carrot nose as veggies are food and you should not be used to decorate snow figures with. I was being called a racist because the snow couple that I built is white. The Middle Eastern guy across the road demanded the snow woman be covered up. The police arrived saying somebody had been offended. The feminist neighbor complained again that the broomstick of the snow woman needed to be removed because it depicted women in a domestic role. The council equality officer arrived and threatened me with eviction. At 8:45, a TV news crew from ABC showed up. I was asked if I knew the difference between snowmen and snow women. I replied, snowballs, and now I'm a sexist. I was on the news as a suspected terrorist, racist, homophobe, sensibility offender bent on stirring up trouble during difficult weather. I was asked if I had any accomplices, and my children were taken by social services. And far left protesters, offended by everything, marched down the street demanding for me to be arrested. And I think that sums it up. I read that. I thought that was hysterical. And it just took every single argument that is used and approach, threw it into one. So I'll try and find out to credit that, but I happen to think it's just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant observation. So anyway, where we're at now is we're going to talk about climbing Mount Everest, right? I'm totally in. I'm totally into these. I'm totally, totally, totally into these Everest documentaries, right? And several years ago, and this is why I wish we never really taped any of our shows early on when we were over on the AM side of things. So we didn't have any um we don't tape, but one it was a New Year's Eve and I was sitting home alone. Well, not alone. Sue and I were home before we went out at 2 in the morning like we do on New Year's. And we're watching this Everest, 3 seasons of this Everest documentary on Discovery Network. And there was a guy who goes to Basecamp and he leads the exhibition, and his name is Russell Bryce. And he's a New Zealand guy. I mean, I don't know why it's always New Zealand guys, but there's a lot of Australian. It's like the shark people, right? They're all Australian or from New Zealand. Most of them are. So, but he's the guy that goes to base camp, leads the expedition, and then sits there with binoculars and looks at the guys climbing, right? And going up and down. And his name is Russell Bryce. So I'm figuring, well, I want to see what his expedition is. I was curious about what it cost. And so it says contact us. So I just said, hey, if you ever want to come on our show, we'd love to have you because I'm watching this documentary now and I find it to be absolutely riveting. Within about 10 minutes, I got an email back. I'd love to be. So we got the guy that sits at base camp coming back on the show. But I started watching them again because since the first time around watching these, there has been some development and some more tragedies on Everest, where 8 more people dying in 2023 or 16. 2015 was the bad earthquake, and there's documentaries on that. It came down and wiped out base camp, killed a lot of people. But I don't know why I'm intrigued by this, other than I am insanely afraid of heights, and there's no way in God's green earth that I'm going up there. There is not a chance in hell that I'm going up. But just to kind of show you what we're looking at here, here's you got your base camp, which is kind of down there at the bottom, and then this would be the North Col. This is where people go. This is the direction they take. Now they can go up on the China side, but it's a lot harder climb. So most people go up on the north face. Hence the jacket and the clothes, the North Face, right? So they go up through here, which is the Khumbu Icefall. And as I watch this, I'm completely freaking out, right? Because the camera angles that they're showing are insane. There's no way I'm going up Mount Everest. Now, that's easy for people to say, but no, there's no way I'm going up Everest. And there isn't. Okay. But there is something I might want to do Everest related, which I will fill you in on later. But if you take a look at this, there's your base camp in the upper left. In the lower left, that's one of those crevasses that they climb across and they walk across on these ladders, right? You can see in the lower right, guys, these are aluminum ladders. These are things you get at like True Value. And you've got these bottomless pits, these endless crevasses down there. If you go down there, you're not getting out. And then they got these spikes on their boots and 2 little ropes. It's no effing way am I doing this. Okay. I stumble in tennis shoes. I can't even begin to imagine walking across an aluminum ladder and having to pick up my feet and get across to continue my climb. It's absolutely ridiculous. And what amazes me is the Sherpas that they have, and you got to hire a Sherpa as a guide. They scurry up and down that mountain like there's no tomorrow. They're the ones who are going up and they're putting the ladders across. It's like just flipping it over and then scurry across the ladder. They go up they have to go all the way up without ropes because they're the ones who secure the ropes to go up. Now you go up and probably a 7 to 10 day window, I guess, in May that you go to climb up. So what you had, so I started looking at it and going, okay, what does it take? Well, there's a step by step approach to climbing Everest, right? There's a step by step approach that you do. And the first one they say is years of prep. You have to build some mountaineering experience where you have to work up to high altitudes like 7,000 meters and strength and endurance training and cold altitude training because it gets to 40 below up there. Again, no, last week sucked balls like there was no tomorrow. And that was only 20 below wind chill, living at 40 below. That's a hard pass. But then you go and you have to fly over there and you fly into this Lukla airport and the runway is only 1,500 feet long. It is the most wicked looking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's LUKLA. Want to get into a rabbit hole? Go take a look at takeoffs and landings at Lukla Airport. So then once you get in, it's an 8 to 10 day trek to base camp. This whole process is 2 months. And it's an 8 to 10 day trek just to get to base camp. And then once you get to base camp, that's at 17,000 feet. I think base camp is higher than any mountain in North America. That's base camp. That's where you're just hanging out and you're starting. And then what they do is they go from base camp, they go up to camp one, they go up and down, up and down, up and down. They carry their supplies and they're trying to acclimate to the altitude. And then they come back and they recover. But it's kind of interesting that the altitudes of these camps, right, are base camp is about 17,000 feet. The mountain itself is like 29,000 feet um, at the summit. And the death zone, okay, it's got a death zone. And I don't do anything with a death zone at all. No, no death zones for me. So you go up, you need a strong cardiovascular base, meaning walking for weeks on end with like 30, 40 pounds on your back. Okay, and again, I'm not gonna do that. But the equipment that you will need oh, good, Marlo, I'm glad you liked it. Um, and the costs are insane. You have to have your base layers of clothing, and you have to have a down parka, which is and then a down suit, which is a hard shell parka and pants. So you gotta have the down one that's like a puffy jacket, then the higher you get, you gotta cover that up. You have to have high altitude boots, goggles, sunglasses, and I learned you can't people do this, man, once they get up there to the summit and they take off their glasses or their dark goggles, that's trouble. You're going to burn your retinas and you're going down blind. I don't think so. You need a technical climbing kit, which is a helmet, harness, crampons, carabiners, a headlight. And there's this I didn't know. The headlight is very, very important. And then you have to have a sleeping bag that'll keep you warm to 30 degrees below zero. First aid and a blister kit, hydration system. Then you have to have your oxygen system and your oxygen bottles. So here's where it gets expensive, right? So your boots are $1,800. Scapo Phantom 9000s, not the 8000s, they're the 9000s. You don't want to do the 8000. You got your down suit, which is another $1,700. Your sleeping bag is going to run you about $1,800. Your technical kit, about $1,500. Your crampons, that's your cheaper thing there. Your other layers and goggles that is going to be about 1,500 to $4,000 if you go with something high end. And then it says poles and headlamps. That's going to be another 1,500. But then it says, or you can save money renting it in Pakistan, in Kathmandu. Okay. When I was growing up and when I was learning how to ski at Kettle Bowl Ski Hill, up outside of Antigo, Wisconsin. I didn't own skis at the time. You could rent skis for $2, skis and boots, and we would go, and the bus would take you up to Kettle Bowl, and that's how I learned to ski with rental skis. I damn near killed myself with rental skis. If I'm going to the top of the world, I am not renting. Okay. I'm not flying from America to Kathmandu and going, I'll just pick up the stuff there. They got good rentals. No, I'm not going to trust a rental for climbing Everest. And then they get to the cost of just the oxygen, and the oxygen is $600 a bottle, and you're going to need six of them. So you're at like $3,600, and then your regulator is another 500. So now you're at 4,100 all in on just the equipment. um, the low cost is like 35,000. If you get really good equipment, you are going to, it's like 35,000 to climb with minimal support. If you get a guided expedition, it's going to cost you 45 to 75,000. And then if you get like a luxury one, where you have your own Sherpa, which I'm sure rich people do, that can run you anywhere from 80 to $200,000. But these Sherpas are going up there. Like I say, if you ever watch these things, these dudes just scurry up and down that hill like there's no tomorrow. And they only make like $30,000. Now, I'm sure that within in what do they have? Rupees or whatever it would be in Pakistan. I'm sure that they're the richest people around, but they're climbing up and down Everest like there's no tomorrow. These guys have climbed, they've summited 20, 30 times, right? But in recent seasons for deaths when they get up there. So what you do is you leave when you do, you go up and down and up and down and up and down, right? And then you've got a 5-day push, which is going up to the summit and back. And you go from base camp to camp 2 on 1, camp 2 to camp 3 to camp 4 to the summit, and then back to camp 4, and then down to base camp. But on the way, you're going to see some dead bodies. And I think it's kind of, I can't believe this is where because I've gotten to know too much about Everest documentaries, of which I'm never going to climb. And they say a lot of people die up there. And I go, "Oh, yeah, they do green boots, right? There he is. That's green boots. When they get up there and they die, they can't get these people down. So they leave them. And or they'll kick them over the edge if there's a cliff. But right when you're making, I don't know, this close to the Hillary step, right when you're making the push there, there's, hey, look at that old green boots is there. He's still there. And there's people dead all over this mountain. That again is going to turn me back. But one of the most brutal seasons up there, was 2023, and they had 18 deaths, and they have since cracked down on the number of permits, right? That they give out. The permits are like 15,000, and they cut back on the number of permits, and this is why. This is going to the summit, and it's like, damn. Now look at okay, there's only one way up and one way down, and you've got these people that are going up, and you can count the people in front of you, and they're maybe moving, 5 minutes to move a couple of steps. So when you add that up, you're sitting up there in the death zone, which I am not going to do because it's the death zone. And if you added that up, it's like, I'm not getting up there till 3 hours for another 3 hours. And they sit there in the death zone, which they say, why do they call it the death zone? Because there's so little oxygen. And even when you're up there, your body starts eating itself to stay nourished. So again, tend to stay away from any type of a activity where my body might eat myself. That's on the no-fly list for me. Even if, we're going to a concert, is there any chance my body is going to eat itself? Yes. Okay. I'm not going. But most fatalities happen all up there. But most fatalities, what you don't know, happen on the way down. People run out of oxygen. If you want to read a great book, read the book by John Krakauer called Into Thin Air. And he documents I think it was in 96, or a storm blew in when these guys were coming down, and a couple guys died. It was so bad, they died and they were only like 40 feet from their tent, like at Camp 3, and they froze to death. Like, but that said, I do wanna go drinking at base camp. I think so that's what got me thinking, because I went and looked at it, and just out of curiosity, I went and typed in, can you just go to base camp? Because when I watch all the documentaries, that's all they're doing, man. They're sitting around at base camp having a grand old time. Everybody else is going up and down. Everyone is going up and down and coming back up. Hey, how was your climb today? Oh, you got to go up the Kumbu ice fall. It's getting a little warm, and the ice fall, constantly shifts. But sitting at like this Russell Bryce guy, I could just sit there. It's not as cold. It's like a regular winter day at base camp here. I could sit at base camp and just hang out, get that far up. And when I went to my high school reunion, I saw a girl who I went to high school with, and we were just talking about stuff. And she goes, "Oh, you wouldn't believe what I did last year." I said, "What?" She said, "I went to Everest Base Camp." It's like, shut the F up. You did not. And I said, "You can just go to base camp?" Yeah, you can just go to base camp. So I looked into it. I could go to base camp for only 5 grand, 5 to 7 grand. Now, there's an 8 to 10 day hike, right, over a suspension bridge, which they refer to as the Hillary Bridge. And this one is going to be a deterrent for me as well, because as I said, I do not like heights. And so as you're going on this 8 to 10 day trek, you got to go across this thing. No, that's going to be another hard pass for me. There is no way on God's green earth I'm going over that. Especially when you look down there, there's just like little boards. It's like I mean, my stomach is turning now just looking at this. But you could take a helicopter, 8 grand all in, 8 grand. I could go to base camp, but they said you only stay there for a day, and it's like I'm not going to go to base camp and stay for a day. Like, I'm gonna stay for a couple days, have some, like, space sticks, some food sticks, and, probably, some soup, and just watching people coming up and going down, I think would be pretty kick-ass, pretty cool. James says, "Remember, you're unemployed. 5 to 7,000 is, a fair amount of money." Well, there's a good chance in May I'm going to Costa Rica. Drew has got a landmark birthday, and he and Johnny Vegas are going to Costa Rica, and I may ride along on this trip. Johnny Vegas is the only guy that I've ever met in my entire life that has gotten timeshare and hasn't gotten screwed on it and knows how to work it. Kinda shut up. It's, yeah, 3:55. He's about ready to get fed. So I may going to Costa Rica, and I can do that on miles. I cannot get to Lukla Airport from Kathmandu on miles. Southwest doesn't go there. Besides Southwest, now with their new seating policy, I'm not flying to Pakistan or to Bangladesh or wherever it is, or Tibet or Nepal. Kathmandu's in Nepal. Anyway, so base camp and have a cocktail. That would be a bucket list thing for me, as long as I didn't have to cross that bridge. But you can take helicopters up to base camp at least. I can't go a lot higher because of the air is so thin. But if you want to see a great documentary, and it's on Amazon. And I believe it is called The Deadliest Game. And it's a documentary about a guy who went to climb Everest. And I was watching one this morning, actually, and the guy said, one of the problems with Everest is you don't have experienced climbers. And I'm thinking, well, no one's just jumping, feet first into Everest. I would certainly hope not. But it's called The Deadliest Game, and it's a guy who was climbing Everest and was filming a documentary of his climb. He died up on the mountain, and they couldn't bring him down. They had to leave him for dead in his documentary. And so the guy he was climbing with had to come down and finish the documentary. But it's wild. It's absolutely wild. So what that gets me to is, so I'm going to base camp. Who's with me? We're going to go have cocktail at base camp. I think that would be it. But that brings us to a couple of things. I'm going to do my top 5 in a moment here. I skipped this one yesterday, and it's one of my favorite segments on the show. And that is, what color is the sky on your planet? Where I take a story and I just read the story and just think with the guy whoever is in the story, what color is the sky in your planet? So in this one, we're going to France, where a hospital in France had to be evacuated. And you see this in Europe a lot, especially in Eastern Europe. It had to be evacuated because a guy brought in a live 8-inch artillery shell. He brought it into the hospital. The shell was from 1918, a live artillery shell from 1918. Um, the hospital was freaking out, right? So what they did is called the called the bomb squad, fire brigade, evacuated the facility. They roped it off. A perimeter was formed around the medical center as authorities got in to investigate this explosive situation. It was 8 inches. The shell was 8 inches long. It was over an inch wide. And had a point on it, so it looked like a big shell. And you wonder how are you gonna get into a hospital with an 8-inch live ammunition shell from World War I? That is why I say, "What color's the sky on your planet?" Because the man who brought it in, brought the shell in, inserted up his rectum. Yep, put a live shell. He was said, "I'm in a state of extreme discomfort." Yeah, because you got an artillery shell up your ass. It's like, what the hell? What the hell? But the bomb disposal experts took the shell with them. They had to go in surgically to remove it. Of course you do. And they took the shell with them and it was disposed of correctly. But to the man who brought in the live artillery shell, I don't care if it's a dead artillery shell. If that's an 8-incher and it's stuck up your butt, all I can say to you is, what color is the sky on your planet, dude? And we'll finish the day with my top 5 all-time worldwide. And there might be something in here that surprises you because today my top 5 all-time worldwide is the top 5 activities people identify as bucket list activities that are the absolute dumbest things to do. So, Jacob, I'm sure he fell on it. You wouldn't believe it, Doc. I was changing a light bulb. Million to one shot. So it is the top 5 things people put on their bucket list that there's no way on God's green earth any normal human being would ever do. So we're going to start off, and coming in at number 5, we're going to have the Marathon des Sables. I don't know. I'm just using what I think could be a French pronunciation. And this is a ultra marathon. Takes place over a couple of days. It's an ultra marathon of 155 miles running through the Sahara Desert. I'm training for the Marathon des Sables. 55 miles. And you look at this guy, he's running, and I don't know if that's a guy or a woman. Doesn't matter. Either way, they don't look real healthy. Not even remotely healthy. You got to put some pounds on that guy. So that is number 5 on a bucket list that I will never, ever do. Number 4 on a bucket list is free swimming and petting great white sharks. Another hard pass for me. Not a chance in hell. The great white shark shouldn't even be, even in a cage. Even if it was a cage at Disney and the shark wasn't real, I would not want to go down there. It would freak me the hell out. But divers would go, let's go pet a great white. Well, let's not. Number 3, the list of bucket list things that people do that no one in their right mind would do. Wingsuit flying. No. I mean, they can do it, right? And, but a lot of people die from it. And I would not want to see what was some of the earliest wingsuits. I'm sure they didn't survive the crash of the guy plummeting to the ground. But even having a discussion with this guy before he even does it, it's like, I'm thinking of making this suit that'll be like wings, and I'm going to jump off the side of this mountain and see if I can fly. It's like, yeah, knock yourself out. You do that. Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll buy you one when we get back. But yeah, I'm not going up there. Number 2 on the bucket list. Number 2. And I bet a lot of you thought this would be number 1, but it's not. It's number 2. Number 2 would be scaling Mount Everest. Again, that is something on a bucket list that nobody in their right mind would ever do. This is the picture that just amazes me and this is also the picture that really made Pakistan, Nepal crack down on how many licenses they were giving out, permits. And one of the guys that he was up there and he made it up and back while this was going on. And they were interviewing him about it, and he was in his like, I guess you could say his man cave or whatever. You know what you get when you climb Everest and you accomplish it? This is what they give you: a certificate suitable for framing. All it is, he had on the wall. He had a picture of all the people that were up there. They took a selfie or someone took a picture. So they had the picture. And then below it is a certificate that just says, "You've scaled Mount Everest." Well, good. You know what? Let me get a shot of that. You can do anything with Photoshop. I'll just I'll just put myself into one of those photos, put the certificate up, call it a day. But the number one thing that people have on their bucket list that there's no way on God's green earth any normal people will do it. But the number one thing on some people's bucket list that I'm going to show you a picture, and just looking at the picture turns my stomach. And people that do this, because it's either there's only one of two things: you either do it or you don't. And I don't mean, I mean, if you attempt to do it, you either do it or die. There's no in between. No one has ever tried to do this and been seriously injured. No, it's either you do it or you die. And that is to free solo climb El Capitan. What the F? And I'm only going to leave this thing up for a little bit because right there, that is freaking me the hell out. I got to take it down. I literally have to take it down because I just get shudders when I see that. But anyone who says I'm going to go free solo, I won't even watch that movie Free Solo. I don't even when it comes on like on Netflix or something or HBO Max and they show the trailer off. I turn that off quicker than I turn off a Sarah McLachlan song over starving puppies. Right, that goes off, and then poof, no, 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 no. So those would be the top 5 things that people put on their bucket list that nobody in their right mind would ever do. That's, number 5 would be the marathon through the Sahara Desert, 155 miles. Number 4, swimming, free swimming with petting great white sharks. Number 3 is wingsuit flying. Number 2 is Mount Everest. Number 1 is free solo climbing El Capitan. No, I am out. But folks, thank you for sticking around with me. Some of the regulars I see there: Jacob in a van, Brent and Franklin, Marlo. Thanks for coming by. Marlo, I'm glad you saw your video. And I'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. What am I going to talk about? I'm not exactly sure yet. But if you know anyone who, and it comes through a lot, I get a lot of people hitting my DMs on YouTube or going to the website or hitting me on Instagram and saying, "What happened to KB?" If anyone asks you that, you can say he's right here on KB's Unemployed show, which is nothing like the show that I used to do, nor is it intended to be. It's just me talking about stuff. So until I see you tomorrow, as I always like to say, make good choices.